Touch it, good. Touch it, good. Touch it, good. Touch it, good. The touch command is a really fun and important lesson for your dog to learn because it's going to teach your dog to engage to you. Hand, yes. Hand, yes. Hand, yes. Hand, yes. Hand, yes. Hand, yes. Good boy. What a good boy. So real important that the dog understand that there is something to touch beside your hand. Goofy, touch it. Touch it. Yeah, good boy. Wait, where's your touch? Touch. Yes, good boy. Touch it. Yes. The touch command is a really fun and important lesson for your dog to learn because it's going to teach your dog to engage to you. There's two ways we use the touch command. The one, like I say, is to get the dog to engage to you. The other one is to get him to do something, to touch something. And I'm going to talk about both of those today in very different ways. When you teach your dog a touch command, you're going to start by teaching your dog to touch your hand. So I would say to Goofy, Goofy, touch. And he would touch it. Goofy, touch. And he would touch it. Now, how do we get the dog to do that? That's what we're going to talk about because it's important that the dog understand the command of touch on your hand, and also you can send the dog to touch. So to teach our dogs to touch, what we're going to do is to give the dog a reason to touch. It's very hard with a green dog just to point at your hand and get them to touch it. What you're going to do is give them a reason. So I'm going to use some really good treats, and today I'm using these small batch beef heart treats, which is a simple one protein ingredient, which are really, really yummy. If your dog has an upset tummy, I would highly recommend these. We've been using with Goofy because he's on a really special diet. So the first thing I'm going to do with Goofy to get him to touch is I'm going to put a small treat here between my fingers like this, and all I'm going to do is say touch, and he's going to get the treat, right? Again, use a really small treat here, put it in between your finger here, you can see it here, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, Goofy, touch. Right? So now every single time there's a treat in my hand, I put it between my finger and I say touch, and he goes and gets it. That's phase one. And during that phase, you're always going to load something onto the area that you want the dog to touch. Spend quite a bit of time, load the area in your hand and go touch. Load the other area of the hand here. Now I'm going to use the other hand. Goofy, touch. Good. Whatever. And if you want to see part 2 of this video, be sure to join my member section. Whatever I'm putting out there is what he's touching. So this is phase one, where every time I say touch, there's a treat there, right? And again, break it down to small pieces. You don't want your dog to get full, and you don't want him to get an upset stomach. Using treats. Using treats is a really valuable tool, but it can also be a detriment to the dog if you use too many. Touch, good boy. And be careful you don't drop the treat, because then you're saying touch and the dog is getting a mixed message. So you'll see I'm really using teeny tiny pieces of the treat, and I'm going to mix it up from hand to hand. So here, Goofy, touch. Good boy. Goofy, touch. Good boy. So he's starting to get this idea that when something comes out, that's what I want him to touch. Now, in part 2, in phase 2, you're going to see in a second what we're going to use this for because it's really fun, but I'm going to take it out of there for right now. Goofy. Now, in part 2 of this, I'm going to get the dog to touch something without there being a reward on it, right? So this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to have some really small treats, but I'm not going to load the target area. And this is a really important phase for your dog to get. So once he knows, I touch it, I get a treat. I touch it, I get a treat. Now, you're going to run a risk of the dog touching or going to touch something and there's no treat and he's going to get confused. But what I want him to do now is to understand that I will deliver a treat. So I'm going to say, Goofy, touch. Good. And then I put the treat there, right? I'm going to say, Goofy, touch. Yeah, good boy. Goofy, touch. Good. Touch. Yeah, good boy. And then I deliver the treat to the area he's touching. That's phase 2. So again, reviewing. Phase 1, there's a treat on the area I want him to touch, and he touches it and gets the treat. Phase 2, he knows there's supposed to be a treat there, but I don't have the treat there. So I say, touch. Yeah, good boy. And then I bring the treat back to there, right? And I can do that again. Touch. Good boy, and give him the treat. Now, if you have a really high-strung dog, the dog can get really, really wound up in this, so you're going to need to keep the dog focused, right? So the important part of this here is keeping the dog in check and don't get wound up when the dog gets wound up. What I want to do now is I want to add another piece in here to how will I direct the dog to touch something else. So a real easy way to do that is to use something as simple as a Post-it note. So yellow is a real easy color for your dog to spot and to see. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a yellow Post-it note and I'm going to hold it in my hand and I'm going to say touch, and he touches it and he gets a treat from the other hand, right? Touch it. Yes, good boy. Good. Goofy, touch. Good. Touch. Good. Touch. Good. Touch. So you see that I can give him the command 3, 4, 5 times and he then will get paid for the touch. In other words, I don't want to just give him the command one time. I want him to become almost incessant for this touch. In other words, he has to drive through. And this is something that really highly trained working dogs or service dogs will do. I'm not teaching how to train a service dog here, but I can teach you that this is something you can teach your dog, a simple skill like opening a door or touching a light switch to turn it on or anything like that, right? No, touch. Good, yeah. Sometimes the dog will start to try to figure out that you want him to touch something else. And that's what you don't want him to start thinking. You want to know that this is your touch. This is your touch. Touch. Yeah, good boy. Touch. Good boy. And mark that behavior right away. Because if you let him go and you don't give him that mark, touch. Yes, good boy. Too consistently, then he's going to touch something else. He's going to try to offer up a different behavior. And that's what you don't want with the dog. And if you like this video, join my member site for the best dog training and dog relationship building lessons available.